It wasn't a scream, but the absence of one. The silence in the house on Elm Street was thick, like syrup, and just as sticky. The air was saturated with fear, not sharp like a knife, but dull and constant, like background noise you stop noticing until it becomes part of you. The Carter family looked perfect from the outside. Mark, a successful realtor, his smile on billboards shining with a cheap glitter of confidence. Katie, his wife, once an artist, now a ghost in her own home. Her movements were cautious, calculated. Her eyes constantly scanned the space, seeking Mark out, gauging his mood. Their 8-year-old son, Jake, struggled in school. Teachers spoke of anxiety, withdrawal. They didn't see the bruises under the long-sleeved shirts he wore in the May heat. The horror hadn't started with fists. It started with words, words that cut deeper than any blade. "You're worthless, Katie. Without me, you're nothing. Who else would want a failure like you?" He'd whisper it in the kitchen while she washed dishes, his breath hot and sticky on her neck. He criticized her clothes, her cooking, her stupid attempts at drawing. "These scribbles. You should be ashamed. Asterisk." He isolated her. "Your friends just use you. Your family never understood us." Gradually, her world shrank to the walls of that house, to the whims of his moods. The first slap happened when she dared to contradict him at dinner. It was a shock, humiliation. And then, his tears, his pleas for forgiveness, his promises that it would never happen again. The cycle locked into place. Promises, rising tension, explosion. Verbal, emotional, physical. Remorse, and again. Each time, the explosion was worse. Slaps gave way to punches to the stomach as he pinned her against the wall, the wallpaper indenting the drywall. He hit her where bruises wouldn't show on her face, on her back, her ribs, her thighs. Worse than the physical pain was his silent treatment. He could go weeks without speaking to her, ignoring her existence except to bark orders. And Jake was his weapon. "Look what you're doing to your son. He's crying because of your hysterics." Mark would yell as Jake cowered in a corner, hands clamped over his ears. Or, even more terrifying, Mark would start disciplining Jake with the same cold cruelty he used on Katie. For the slightest misstep, withholding food, locking him in the musty closet, under the stairs that smelled of dust and mouse droppings. "Daddy just wants you to grow up a real man, not a weakling like your mother," he'd hiss at the trembling boy. One night, it became especially terrifying. Mark came home late, drunk and sullen. He found one of Jake's drawings, a simple child's picture of their house, but without Mark, just Katie and Jake holding hands under a sun. Something about that sun, about their joined hands, enraged him. He didn't touch Katie. He grabbed Jake by the arm, dragged him into the living room, and threw him down on the floor in front of her. "There he is, your little boy, your little artist," Mark snarled, waving the drawing. "He hates me. You taught him that." His eyes were insane. He started tearing the drawing into tiny pieces, hurling the scraps into Jake's face. "You're nothing, a worthless weakling, just like your mother." Then he grabbed Katie's sketchbook, her last secret refuge, her attempts to hold onto some shred of herself, and began ripping out pages, stomping on pencils. Katie cried out, instinctively lunging for the book. It was a mistake. The blow was so hard, she flew backwards into the fireplace, cracking her head against the stone hearth. The world dimmed. She could hear Jake gasping in a soundless scream, saw Mark, berserk, raising the heavy crystal ashtray high above the boy. There was nothing human in Mark's eyes, only rage and the absolute power to destroy. In that moment, through the pain and fog, Katie didn't see herself, didn't feel the hurt. She saw her son's face, twisted in terror, and something in her snapped. Not a scream, not a fight. Silence, but different. Not the silence of a victim, the silence before the storm. She slowly pushed herself up, blood trickling down her temple. She didn't say a word, just looked Mark straight in the eyes. Her gaze was empty, like a dead thing's, but burning with a cold, inhuman resolve. She stepped towards him, ignoring the ashtray, ignoring his growl. She stepped sure between him and Jake. "Touch him." Her voice was quiet, rasping, but it sounded like stone grinding on glass in the deathly quiet. "And I will burn this house to the ground, with you inside, I swear." Mark froze. He was used to fear, to tears, to pleading. This icy, reckless resolve was alien to him. It was terrifying. The ashtray lowered. For an instant, his eyes held not fear, but confusion. The beast had encountered something unpredictable. That same night, while Mark slept off the alcohol, Katie woke Jake. She took only their passports, a little money hidden for years in a coffee can on the highest shelf, and her son's mutilated drawing. They slipped out the back door like ghosts. She didn't look back at the house that had been their prison. They walked through dark streets to the 24-hour bus station. Katie felt the blood crusting on her temple, the small hand trembling in hers. She didn't know where they were going. She only knew they were leaving, and that the silence surrounding them now on the empty station platform was different. It was fragile, filled with the fear of the unknown. But Mark wasn't in it, and that was the first breath of air she'd taken in years. But even as they fled, Katie knew Mark wouldn't let them go. His rage, his sense of ownership, his twisted love, it was a monster that would wake in the morning, and the hunt would begin. The worst nightmare might still lie ahead. They had escaped the cage, but the forest outside was dark and full of unseen dangers. And the walls of the house on Elm Street, steeped in fear and pain, would forever hold their imprints, and the echo of his footsteps.